Cranial movements and development. I was just putting together my skull. I joke around that you can only become a practitioner when you can put together this one skull that comes apart like a jigsaw puzzle. And I was really thinking about how I always talk about cranial movements and development. One of the reasons why it's really difficult to get your child to succeed in milestones is after skull fusion, or especially if there's premature skull fusion, right? The skull starts to fuse at about 9 months of age, completes up around 18 months of age, and that's when you see the soft spots disappear, the anterior and posterior. But all the sutures, right, are open in a way for developmental movements, right? And one of the things that you're looking at when you're doing that, so like the parietal bones, right? These are the two bones on the top of your head, right? They come out of the womb like almost like I think of ladybugs, and that's where you get that extension in the spinal. And this is why it's really important that we have a full-term vaginal delivery. And when we don't, how was the C-section performed? Because if it interrupted with those cranial movements, that's where you have developmental issues, even though you think you had a healthy C-section. I just actually worked with the Munchkin, and he's typical. I get it, but I touched his back in vision. I noticed that he had a glitch in his vision, and so I was having Diane look at him. But when Diane's looking at him, I always work on the pelvic, the spine and stuff. And I was like, "What kind of birth did he have?" And they're like, "Oh, emergency C," and they were going through it. I'm like, "Oh, we're switching out one of his brother's lessons for me because no, he can't grow old with this." And so this is why, certain things were just, I just started just explaining his whole development, how he just stood there as a baby and didn't go. And they're like, yeah, he just seemed like he was afraid. I'm like, no, he was stuck, whatever happened in that spine. And people think that, because your child's running around and doing all these things are fine. They're fine. They are. Is it optimal? We're about optimal development at any age. Anyway, the reason that the parietal bones coming together like this, so when I'm walking and I'm learning how to do these things, right, these movements are meant to have and happen to counter, and so they can be into the functional stage of development. When they precede, or again, I've had a shunt or this, that, and there's so many things, or seizures where these get locked up, the sutures, right? This is where you see movements like this versus that, oh, hi, how are you doing? And if you don't think the skull moves, I don't care if you're a grown adult, you will let me go on the table with you and I'll get your skull moving like a little, like butter. It's amazing when you feel your skull move. These movements can still take place even though you're an adult, but again, the sutures go and they come together. And that's where the development part, the movement part is more accessible when the skull can still move in the cranial area. And that's what I teach with my cranial courses. Thanks.